Hi, I'm Brady Self. I am in the forestry department. I work for Mississippi State University Extension as a forestry specialist. One of the duties that kind of falls on to me is that of forest herbicides, and one of the questions that I get a lot of is how do I do mid-story injection, how do I do mid-story control in my forest management efforts. So what I want to do is kind of run through today a little bit about what forest management technique I'm talking about when I talk about mid-story control, as well as some of the tools that we use and kind of the technique that we use to do that type of work. So mid-story injection or mid-story control is basically a tool that we use to take that mid-story layer out. So you've got your canopy up top, and then your ground story down low, and then you have that middle tier of vegetation that kind of is in between the upper canopy and what's on the ground. When we're talking about trying to regenerate hardwood species, that mid-story level or mid-story vegetation can be problematic, and a lot of times what we'll do is we'll go into a stand and we'll try to remove some of that chemically. With herbicides, we'll try to remove some of those stems in order to get our light levels up to a point where it's easier to establish that oak primarily regeneration that we'll try to go back in through natural regeneration efforts. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use that tool, that technique, in other aspects like wildlife, habitat management, even in pine silviculture, things like that. But one of the biggest uses we have from a forest management standpoint is that of trying to get light on the ground from a regeneration standpoint. Lots of tools been used in the past. I have a few that I borrowed here. These are loaned to me courtesy of James Floyd with Holmes Community College there at the forestry program in Grenada, and he loaned me a couple of tools that are basically antiques at this point. Right here I have a cranjector. This was a tool where they used it to make basal applications of herbicide, basal injections. So they would slam this into the base of a tree, and they pull this little cable which releases, it pulls a plunger up, releases a pre-measured amount of herbicide into the cut on the base of the tree, loaded through the top. The last, I looked this morning, I googled this particular tool. The last advertisement I could find anything on for this particular tool being for sale was an ad from 1964. So not a lot of these left out there. This is actually the only one I've ever touched personally. It worked. They used this particular tool, and they used this tool, which works on the same principle. It's just got a lever that you push in, basically. Does the same exact thing. This was a Jim injector. Worked on the same principle of releasing, back in the day, primarily they were looking at 2,4-D, Tordon, things like that, some of the old chemistries that they would inject into the base of those trees for control. They worked. Can't buy them anymore. There's one out there now that's called a EZ injector that you can find on forestry suppliers and some of those sites like that. Those are actually capsules of herbicide. They're not just straight herbicide, liquid form. It'll be a little capsulated thing, and you put it in and it injects it in the tree. Looks a lot like the cranjector. It'll cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of about $500 to buy that particular tool. Not a lot of people use those anymore. After that, so we're looking at 60s through the probably 50s if you go far enough back. 50s, 60s, on up into the early, maybe as far as into the early 80s that you saw that type of technology used, that type of equipment. Then in the 80s and early 90s, hypo hatchets became kind of a popular tool to use. A lot of people still like to use these. This works a little differently. It's still going to work basically pushing the herbicide solution into a tree, but Arsenal AC, imazapyr, became really popular in the 90s. It was a lot more expensive then than it is now, and this particular tool was set up to use that type of herbicide, so a small amount of volume going into the tree with each cut. These things would have had basically a belt, and you'd see them in holsters with different 1-quart jugs stuck in the holster. Works off the same principle. You're hitting a tree. This one, instead of at the base, you're actually doing waist level, maybe a little higher injections. And the way it works was you hack the tree. You slam the hatchet portion into the tree, and this plunger, if you'll see right here, this plunger stops it. It also, inertia driven, it pushes a pre-measured amount of herbicide into the tree. Typically going to be an Arsenal, an imazapyr product that was used with these. You can still buy these. These they don't have anymore. This, the hypo hatchet you can still buy. I checked this morning on Google. They're running in the $470, $480 range. So it's a pretty expensive tool if you're not wanting to do a lot of injections. The next tool that I want to mention is you'll hear this called hack and squirt more than injection. They're kind of synonymous, but it's not technically injection versus the hypo hatchet. But hack and squirt, where you have a hatchet, you hack the cambium of a tree and you spray down the blade and into the tree to get the herbicide into it. Primarily what you're going to see used here, there's several herbicides that you could use, but primarily we're going to be talking about a 20% solution of a 4-pound imazapyr. Arsenal AC being a trade name. There's other generics and other products out there that you could use, but that's going to be the chief product that we see used. So you hack and you squirt. What I want to do next is I want to actually show you how that technique's done. So I'm going to turn the camera off. We're going to walk over into the woods here, and I'm actually going to hack a couple of trees, inject the herbicide, and kind of show you the right way to go about doing that, as well as show you kind of some of the light conditions that we see in that stand. All right, as promised, we are looking at a stand. In this case, we're not looking at a hardwood stand, we're looking at a pine stand, but the principle for mid-story injection, or in this case hack and squirt using imazapyr, is the same as it would be in a hardwood forest. This just happens to be where I'm at right now. The goal of this is to get those light levels up for regeneration from a hardwood standpoint, if you're using this as a hardwood tool. You can also get the light levels up to get vegetation on the ground from a wildlife habitat improvement. You get that herbaceous layer back on the ground that different types of wildlife species like or need, I guess I should say, for healthy living. So everybody's been in a stand like this. There's not a lot of light getting to the ground. There's not a lot there. And what we're trying to do, again, is just increase that light level up to a point where you get enough light on the ground that you can actually establish regeneration from an oak standpoint. That's what we're talking about primarily. And recruit that regeneration on up into the overstory through some other work that comes subsequently. What I want to do is kind of show you real briefly, what we're talking about from a technique standpoint. Very simple. This happens to be an elm. That's kind of actually a tough species to control with imazapyr, which is what we're going to be talking about here. However, it will work as an injection tool. Rule of thumb, when you're doing mid-story injection of any type with imazapyr, one hack, in this case through hack and squirt, one hack for every 3 inches of diameter. Real simple. I'm going to use a squirt bottle from Walmart and a hatchet. It's just that simple. Real easy. One hack for every 3 inches. This is about a 3.5, 4 inch diameter tree, so I'm going to hit it twice. You hack, you pull that cambium back just a little bit, and then if you'll look, you squirt right on the blade, and you let that herbicide run down into the cut. Now I got a little bit of drippage right there, but that's a little bit too much. You don't want a lot of that, because this will have some soil activity, and you run into some issues there. And then, because of the size, you're going to hack it one more time, and you're going to squirt down that blade and let it run into that cut, into that frill. Now, if this were actually imazapyr, if this was actually a solution of a 4-pound, 20% 4-pound imazapyr product, you would see me out here with PP. I don't have on gloves, I don't have on my long sleeve shirt, and I don't have on eye protection. If this was actually a treatment involving imazapyr, you would want to have those on. It is a caustic substance. Speaking personally, I've had it in my eyes. It doesn't feel real good. It'll burn you. Not that toxic, but it does have some caustic, eye burning qualities that are associated with it, and you always want to be safe. But that's just how simple the treatment is. The basal injectors would have actually been employed down on the at the base of the tree. We don't do that anymore, like I said. But real simple technique, not a lot involved. Something that you can pick up, a squirt bottle from Lowe's or from Walmart, a hatchet from Walmart. The herbicide's non-restricted use. You can go out and actually purchase this yourself. Pretty cheap to do this type of treatment yourself. If that's something that you choose to do, there are vendors that offer it too. Great tool, a lot of use in a lot of different areas of management from a forestry standpoint. And that's about all we have time to talk about. You can find some information on this particular technique if you'll go to the MSU Extension website and look up tree stand improvement, timber stand improvement using tree injection. There's a publication that we put together that gives a lot more detail into the process, and it's out there in public domain. You can access it pretty easily. Right now, that's about all the time we have. I'll try to keep this thing short. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at brady.self@msstate, 2 S's, 1 word, .edu. That's brady.self@msstate.edu. And hopefully I'll get back with you pretty soon with some more of this, this instructional type of video programming. Thanks, and we'll see you later. Bye.